No, they lost their first game to Atlanta. They lost it, so most of the end. They came back. One time they were down by 50. They came back. Within 6-5.
All right, it is 6 o'clock and I will call the Dalton Township Planning Commission meeting for March 26th to order. First thing we have is roll call. Dave, I'm here. Jesse? Here. Todd? Here. Lee? Here. John? Here. Casey? Here. And Kevin? Here. Anything to add to the agenda or the other items that you had up here for us? I think there's a letter. And a couple other inserts. One was the plan on one for J. Other than that, anything else? Change? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Move forward with that. We have the meeting notes from the minutes from February 20th. Meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for February 2024 as presented.
I will support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We now have up to public comment. Again, we have some items covered later on in tonight that also have hearings with it. If you'd like to speak now, this is 3 minutes for anything you want to discuss. Take your 3 minutes and March Madness, whatever you want to do. I'll go ahead and open that up at 6:02.
I just want to let you know that I'm here on behalf of EVC Holdings regarding the new business regarding the EV chargers.
Okay.
So if there are any questions, we can address them at that time.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Anyone else? We usually don't have much public, so this is kind of fun for us. All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:03. All right, we will move on to items for public hearing. Do we have anyone here from Thunderbird Raceway? Okay, if you would like to, at least at this point, kind of step forward and tell us a little bit about what it is that you are looking for.
I'm Heidi Morel and I'm the owner. And I really don't want to change anything from the curfew from last year. So we had it, I think, at 11:45. I would just like to keep it the same. I don't have any other issues going on or any reason to even make it longer than that. We're doing a different program this year and hopefully it will change a lot of things on how things are run. And I just want everything to stay the same.
What's different with the program? What's different with the program?
We combined two classes, which it could be good or bad. We're going to probably have more of these cars, so that we'll put them different on the schedule as far as the running order. And hopefully they'll be done before all the other ones need to come on board. We're trying to give, I got on the schedule that we got a couple Sunday shows, so they don't even go into the nighttime. We've got our little kids doing an invitational. And kind of so just like last year, but it's just, we're trying to make it so that, and I hate to bring Kevin's name up, but his class is the one that we redid. And just trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be out there. But at the same time, I don't feel every single class has to run every Saturday night. Because that's when we run into more problems, especially with us enlarging the other class. So we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to race without having to cut anything. And or cut labs or things like that.
I read in whatever was submitted that I think this is the third year I've been here to discuss your closing time and the noise. And I read that you have decided to put these certain class of cars that are noise restricted at the end of the night. I thought that was proactive. Can you elaborate?
Yes. We would do them at more towards the end of the night because they aren't as noisy as like the late models or street stocks. Because they have bigger engines and they are louder.
Did you do that last year?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so. Okay. That makes sense though. 'Cause that's always, seems to be that was the.
It does get noisy and but we have to make sure that we run the loudest ones earlier in the night.
Yeah.
Versus the other ones.
Okay.
And the little kids, they run on the infield track and they don't make the noise.
Right.
Wasn't it, so last year, wasn't it something we had to make like a permanent thing, the concessions, that was gonna keep coming up, so we decided to make it permanent?
Yeah, that was concessions.
It seemed to make sense to do the same thing with this, but
Right. I would like to next year have my own concessions there. Right now, we have 2 third-party companies that come out. And they do great.
And I know at one point you had said that there was a bigger interest amongst the youth racers, or that you were having more of them. Did you see that through the rest of the season?
Oh, yeah. You know, the mini wedges, you know, they're from 6 to 9 or 10 to 14. Very popular. Very, very popular. And another thing that we did this year is we kind of partnered with Crystal, even though it's the same night as us, but we made everything the same roll packages. So if we rain out and they're still running, our people can go over there and run and not have to worry about getting disqualified.
All right, well, thank you very much for doing that. I'm going to, at this point, open up the public hearing. So we will give public opportunity here to make comments in regards to that, or for SU 24-12. So open that at 6:08. And if you do state you would like to make a comment, if you give us your name and address, that will help on that also. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Six. Yep. All right, having no public comment, we'll close that at 6:09. Now have more discussion on that. We did have a letter that was submitted late that did come into Stephen, so that we had came in yesterday.
that's the only thing you received, like all.
Yeah, because they only publish it for 300 feet from the track, which is ridiculous. I would like to rewrite the motorsports so that when you're publishing these things, it goes out where you can hear it, like 5 miles or something, because we don't get people here because nobody knows we're even talking about this right now, because 300 feet is like 12 houses or less. I think it's less than 12. So when they rewrote the motorsports and they picked to have it come back open, and it was out of business for 5 years, and then when they reopened it, they wrote the motorsports with tons of people, tons of input from the people, and everybody wanted the curfew earlier. They said, yeah, we love it. We love the track. We want it to open, but we have to have our piece. We have to be done by 11. And that's why it was decided to be that. And now every year we the problem is, in the past, they have used it to just like, oh, we had something come up. But now they're not. They're always racing way after 11. They're not, I mean, they're using 11:45 as their new curfew. And they're, like he says, on the track by 11:45, not like done racing at 11:45. And it's completely taken away from the original intent of the motorsports. So I suppose if the planning commission wants it to be 11:45, but we need to rewrite instead of making an exception every year, we certainly cannot make this permanent, going in direct violation of an ordinance we have on the books. I mean, that would be irresponsible. We need to rewrite the motorsports ordinance then, if that's the direction people want to go. But I would tell you that I constantly, when this comes up, all the people that are right around in the neighborhood, none of them are willing to come speak to you because they do not want any backlash from the track. They do not want any fans of the track to backlash. Maybe that wouldn't happen now, but in years past, prior to the 5-year when it was closed, if you ever spoke out about anything about the track, you would have people just making your life awful. And there are lots of people who have lived in that neighborhood for a long time who will speak out as long as they can remain anonymous. And I don't feel like we're getting last year we got a letter from somebody who lives in Fruitland Township over like somewhere down Duck Lake. I guarantee if anybody would have asked her, she would have submitted another letter this time too, but I guarantee she didn't know anything about it because how would she? I mean, unless you read the Chronicle. And let's all know how many people read the Chronicle.
I was gonna ask, outside of this, did we have any complaints last year to the township directly of noise from the?
No other official complaints. I did have someone
We had
that
people
partly
in
expressed they weren't exactly happy with it, but they didn't file any complaints.
yeah, there were a few objections from the
A couple
public.
people that were concerned,
But, you know,
but
it
no
didn't,
official complaints.
wasn't heated or anything. And I think that they left satisfied that the 11:45 was said, and at least I had that impression.
Yeah, you're talking at the last meeting?
A year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Ish.
I just meant outside of that meeting and this meeting, was there ever any complaint or?
Casey, is your position that the ordinance is not written correctly or the track's too loud after 11? What?
I don't think people have a problem right around 11. 11:45 is way later than 11. I mean, when you've got kids that are trying to sleep and you're trying to sleep with your windows open, it's a lot later. I mean, and that's the parking lot lights are still on, the PA is still on until that late. That means by the time the traffic finally clears, you're looking at well after midnight before everybody's out of there when they run that late. And so, and yes, the motorsports, there are some things that I think are not a good idea in that ordinance that they may have thought they were at the time, but they were not written correctly. They did not use the correct verbiage. And thus it's creating weird situations that just shouldn't exist.
What weird situations.
The fact that this also has to go to the township board. Nobody, if us as a planning commission tells somebody, I'm sorry, we can't approve your request, you get to then go to our not bosses. I mean, the township board is not our boss, but you get to go to a higher power. Everybody else has to go to circuit court. And that's just not, I don't want an ordinance on the book where everybody feels like, oh, well, that racetrack gets to just ask 7 new people. Even if we say no, if the township board says yes, that means 50% of the governing bodies in this township can say no, and it still gets passed, but everybody else is like, oh, sorry, you can file a lawsuit now, and that's not fair at all.
Would you like me to explain why that 11:45 is important to us?
Oh, I know. I know exactly why. It used to be if you had accidents and things like that. but it's now become, let's just race longer, like, well, that, I have spoken to people who are there so that I could see what's happening. And nights that you ran later, I cross-referenced, there was not one emergency that night. There was not one call that night. So what do you consider an emergency then? If it's not the ambulance or the fire department needing to respond, or the police, what is an emergency that would cause you to need to go later?
If we have a bad wreck on the track, it takes longer to get that race done. I mean, it really does.
So nobody would be injured in that or need
No,
anything?
but I mean, you got 6-car pile out on between turn 1 and 2. We gotta take everybody that's available to go out there, undo the cars, because a lot of them get stuck together, get the tow truck out there. So that's another half hour right there. But as far as, do we deliberately make sure that we can run till then? No, we want, actually, I tell the staff, we have to be done by 11:30.
I don't think anybody thinks it's a deliberate action. I want to make that clear. It's just an unintended consequence, but it doesn't make it any less loud when you're running that late. Most people don't really care the circumstances behind it, especially knowing that you start your races at 3:00, right? 2:00? 4, what time?
We start, the mini wedges run first between 5:30 and 6. We are on the track actually racing till 6:30, almost 7.
Okay, so why not start a little earlier? To give yourself a cushion in that direction?
I would like to, but people don't want to do it that way. It's also, we have a lot of drivers that come from Traverse City, I-96 way. So if we say, okay, we're gonna start racing at 5, a lot of them won't be there because they can't make it. A lot of them work during the day on a Saturday.
So you feel like the neighborhood should give instead of you giving a little. When we have previously had the racetrack in front of our board, there was give and take. They said, we'll start earlier, and then we were able to meet halfway. But now it seems like you're saying that that's no longer an option to start any earlier, do anything.
Since I've been around that track, and I've been around that track since 2016, we have started early. It's because of the mini wedges. We want to get the kids out there, get them done. Our pit gates don't open until 3, so they all have to be in their pits, getting ready. Then we do hot laps. Then the kids race. Then we just start doing the regular racing. Ideally, I think we should be done a lot earlier than that, but we don't ever put a race out there at 11:30. Or 11:45. I don't want to be there. I mean, I don't want us to run that late. Because there's a safety factor. The track gets more moisture and it's more dangerous. So I'm very into making sure that everybody's taken care of. And I'm not like the other owners. And I am by myself now. My husband and I have split. So it is just me. And I'm fortunate to have a good crew. And we're always on these guys. We don't wait for people to get, oh, I gotta go race. If they don't make it up to the lineup when the race starts, they don't race. And there are rules that we have to follow, that they have to follow. Because we can't just let them dilly-dally down in the pits. But one of the biggest reasons why we push that is because 11:45, it's just that cushion we need. You never know what's gonna happen. I mean, one of the races last year, it should have only taken 20 minutes. And we had an incident with one of our modified guys, decided he was mad. He stopped underneath the flag stand, and it took another hour just to get him and his crew up and out of there. Where that race should have been done within 20 minutes. So that's the only reason why. I'm not saying, yeah, we're gonna race at 11:45. No. I don't want to be out there. The guys don't want to be out there.
one of the concerns listed on there was that and again, not having dates, I can't give you specific, it just says, also many times additional cars are allowed to go on the track and practice a few laps after the race, meaning the noise nuisance does not end until midnight or later. Has that happened or?
I think it only happened once when a gentleman had a new car and he went out there and tested it.
So it wasn't something that happens on a nightly basis?
No.
Okay.
No. Again, I don't want him out there. I really don't want him out there that way. And I like to push it so we can get done way earlier than 11:45. 11:45 is my cushion to make sure my teams and everything are taken care of, especially when we have wrecks.
And I guess I'm not familiar enough with the actual verbiage and things, but is there a requirement, it said in here also that practices scheduled? And then now it says last year multiple times, no practice were scheduled and cars were outrated. Is there a requirement that we would have to set a time when they can practice?
I usually do one Wednesday a month.
I believe in the original approval, there's a set limit to the number of events that can be held, events and practices. We would have to go through and look at those numbers.
Okay. Anyone have?
I guess for me, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not a racer. I've never went there. My kids keep bugging me to go there and take them there once, but I never have. But I only live a mile and a half away and I hear it. It's just noise, just like the rumble strips on the freeway and Harleys and whatever else. And I mean, it's just, oh, it's summertime. It's Dalton. There's the race tires and I don't even hear them. I don't know. But that's just me. Some people do, some people don't. And I can understand where, you know, from a business standpoint of things, I can tell you they're not getting rich over there. Because there'd be a lot more racetracks around. And I think all Heidi's trying to do is work around the racers enough, just trying to split hairs, right? And work around the racers enough, but work around the community enough, and do what you can to get enough people there. Have the races you can and get them done. But I don't see her intentionally stretching it out. I don't even know Heidi, but in my opinion, yeah, she doesn't want people there at 11:45. She wants her employees going at 11 o'clock. Costs less money. She wants a smaller window.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to have everybody just hanging around there. It doesn't generate any more income. It just costs more money.
I do want to add, last year, I did the neighbor passes. I thought it was gonna be very successful because we do it within a mile.
Oh,
And we mailed out several letters and I had several phone calls. Yes, I want one. Yes, I want one. And I'd say over maybe 25% were claimed at the general mission window. So I was trying to, I was trying to be neighborly and say, hey, why don't you come in?
Right.
How do you send those letters out? How do you pick who's gonna get one?
I had Jeff. And were you involved with that too, Steve? Or we did a radius of?
Yeah.
Yes. They gave me a whole list of who was within a mile of the track. And we did have some.
It's kind of what Electric Forest does up in Rothbury.
Oh, do they? Yeah, well,
They go out of their way to accommodate the,
Except this year,
not this year.
we just completely gave up on the neighborhood.
And what I did, there were free passes. If they had a neighbor pass,
yeah, oh, I guess.
they were getting free all year, for general admission.
The only thing I have to add is that I know that with voter racing of any kind, there's a lot of tradition. Dirt bikes race Sundays. You guys are Saturday night specials or whatever. And you've been out there for years and years and years. Are you, by the way, the same owner that owns the track in Home Lake, now 55? That gentleman was here 2 years ago.
That was Mike Blackburn.
Your partner?
No,
Mike Black.
Mike Blackburn.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, can you tell us how other tracks operate in terms of time? And
A lot of them don't have curfews at all. And I mean, there's one of his tracks, one of Merritt.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get out of there at 2 a.m. And I think it's ridiculous. Now, with Winston being shut down, we do get more from there. But they were another one that did not follow any kind of curfew. And again, it was 2 or 3 in the morning before they would get done with racing. Their features weren't even going on until midnight. Right? And there's no, I personally feel that there's no reason for that. They had less cars than we did. We averaged 135 every Saturday night.
wow, okay.
So I'm torn between understanding that this is a unique business in the township, and just the nature of it requiring the time and the flexibility, you know. Obviously, it's unpredictable. And also torn between that and trying to accommodate. I'm very willing to accommodate business and all that. But at the same time, trying to look out for the people in the area that I don't think feel the same way. And also, you know, they moved into an area that had a long established track. You know, it's kind of one of those things where if the noise is a concern of yours, you shouldn't move to a place that a racetrack. So, you know, but it's a balancing act, right? Let's say we say no. Right? What would be the financial burden of having to cut a race short and saying, nope, hey, we had this big wreck earlier in the night, the last race can't go? What kind of burden would that be on you?
I still have to do payouts for any racer that shows up for that. So if I don't race a race, then I don't get the payout. I get gentlemen and gals that have showed up to race.
Oh, yeah, I get that. So that would be
A financial burden.
not fun. Yeah. But you still got the ticket sales.
Right, but I still have to do the payouts.
Yeah.
The ticket sales provide me with the payouts.
Yeah.
And let me see. On an average Saturday night last year, we were paying out $22,000 for payouts.
Hmm.
So we hopefully would bring all that in.
Yeah.
Front. If not, it comes out of my back.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have to pay a refund to the people that came though. That's I mean, it's not, I understand.
So are you saying you pay all the drivers whether they race or not, but that money comes from ticket sales? It doesn't come from, like, they're not paying an entrance fee that you have to refund if their race doesn't go, right? You pay them from your business,
All ticket
basically.
sales, yes, that includes the pits, that includes general admission.
So if their race doesn't go,
I have to.
you still have the sales from the tickets that night, the
Right.
same as you always would.
Right.
You just have to pay people who the crowd didn't get to see, right?
I have to pay start pay, I believe it is, yeah. So like late models, their start pay, whether we race or not, is $300 for each.
They go earlier in the evening, right? So what are the odds that they don't get, that they don't race? Have you ever had the late models not race? Okay.
That was not since I've owned.
Yeah. So the thing here is that it's a little odd to make a special exception just for one business. I mean, I think that's been talked about before. And it sounds like the racing isn't really even starting till 5, 6 o'clock, somewhere in there. I mean, people gotta show up sooner, but the first races aren't going on until 5, 6 o'clock, right? 5:30. I know every time we have to address this, we ask like why it can't start sooner, right? Because it's kids going out first, right? And if it was on a weekday, I could definitely see where that would be an undue burden to say, hey, you need to start sooner because people got work, people got school, you know, they gotta get everything together, travel. But it's a Saturday, right?
Which people, a lot of people work on Saturday.
I get that, but the balance here is that it's a special exception for one business in the community when the alternative is just asking people to show up earlier, right? But then I think that we would still end up dealing.
I would lose business if I told them to show up earlier. Just because I have people coming from 2 and 3 hours and they work.
So I'm just talking through kind of what I'm thinking. You know, I want to be overly accommodating, but I also want to be reasonable to the people that don't see it the same way. Well,
Would 11:30 be a better curfew time or 11:15?
I think another sticking point too is the track was closed for 5 years. So, I mean, I don't want to bring myself into it, but I do live right across the street and we built our forever home the 1 year after the track closed, not thinking it would ever open again. We had previously lived in the township, so yes, we knew there was a racetrack, but we did not know it would open again. There's also another person who in my neighborhood unfortunately wants to remain anonymous. He also has moved in during that same period. He actually didn't realize what it was. He didn't really know it was a racetrack because he's from out of state. So there are a handful at least of people who, when you say, well, they knew that there was a racetrack, there was a time period when unfortunately there was not a racetrack. So I try not to rely too heavily on blaming the people who moved into the area at that time, so.
I'm just trying to run a business and trying to make everybody happy, which I won't ever make everybody happy, but I'm doing my best.
Well, we know, our job is to make sure the residents of the township feel like we're being their voice and that we're trying to keep as many people as happy.
And
It's balance, it's a delicate balance, we
I
know.
understand it. I mean, I really do. I mean, I'm there every Saturday night and we don't want them racing any part past like, 11:15, 11:30. So I don't know if we should change it from 11:45 to 11:15. I don't know. I need to know what your opinions are on that one too.
Do you keep track of how late the racing goes? So do you have a list from last year that we could reference?
I can get a list.
Okay.
Or for instance,
Tells you what time the last race finished for the night?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if anybody else is interested in, maybe we should have asked this question before this came on the agenda, but that's interesting to see. What time do you feel like you ended most nights?
probably about 11:15.
Okay,
So 11:15, we've swung a half hour from, and that's showing something that we had mentioned before, that we see a little give and take. That would be something, at least, it does give you that burden. If you get weather, you get something that comes along that's obviously out of your control, an accident, things like that. Would that be sufficient? I mean, if you were able to do it last year, most of the time by 11:15, do you feel that would be a fair accommodation?
And I could let somebody know if we ran over because of whatever had happened.
And that's not starting anything before or after 11:15, correct? Okay, so it could potentially run beyond? Or is that the drought?
We would not start a race at 11:15.
Okay,
but if you were running one, you would continue after that time if you needed to finish it.
Right.
Okay.
so that's what I'm saying, we would still not hurt you that way, so you would have the ability, if you started at 11:15 is kind of the point you couldn't start at or later.
We actually did cut a few races last year because they were just running too long, and every time we turn around, someone would spin out and cause caution, and it just would drag on and on and on. And if there was a 25 lap race, And at lap 20, you're still taking forever to run, then we would cut that race. It's like, because you guys can't drive correctly, you're gonna be cut. It's the race is done. So we have that ability to do that.
I have one last comment. Casey, I think it's a cop-out to say that, people aren't here in opposition because they're afraid. You know, there's no opposition here. That's the problem I'm having.
Okay, well-
Let me finish. And, if, you know, whether we send out more letters, great. We have one that we received, but I don't hear the community saying, shut it down, it's noisy, whatever. We can hear it on Twin Lake, depends on the way the wind blows. People are used to it for the most part. So, you know, but for us trying to run your business is unfair. Based on hearsay. Well, people used to feel threatened. That's baloney. You know, if they feel that way, they should be here. Or, you know, whatever. Find a mechanism to get them here. So I feel it's a little disingenuous. I'll just leave it at that.
If you can hear them at Twin Lake, how do you think it is for somebody whose backyard backs up to the racetrack? It's a little bit different than the experience that you're going through. And I think it's our job to make sure we're taking into account what it feels like to be closer to the track than your home may be.
When you say we,
The board, the
Okay.
people sitting at this table right here.
I'm thinking of the neighborhood that, you know, did somebody have a comment last year about a decibel meter?
We have one.
And where, you know, radius of.
Yeah, we have one.
So we're splitting hairs. I think we should find a time and, you know, ask you if your organization cannot start any new races after X. I'll be cool with that. But the time is, but
I would be happy with 11:15 as the curfew, because then that gives me more power to, and also gives me more power to make sure that my staff is working more efficiently, so we don't run into any more issues other than what's uncontrollable, like bad wreck on the track.
is that good, 15 or?
I appreciate you being willing to compromise. I think that speaks a lot about your feelings towards the community and wanting to be a team player. So, yes, I appreciate that.
It's always good when we get that, because we have to make like King Solomon decisions sometimes, and it's either yes or no. And if we can vet something to make it so it's fair, you know, without hurting.
I'm very willing to work with the community. You know, I actually have some live in the community now. So I'm more into making sure I'm more aware of everything going around. But I just, when I say, all right, staff, we have to be done by this time. And you are gonna be held accountable if we're not. Because we're supposed to be a team over there, and that's what I have revamped my team last year as well. And I think I've got a good solid ground of people. But they have to understand, you just can't go do anything. And when you were asking about like cars after the night's done, going out there and practicing, I don't usually know when that's happening until I see that there's a car out there. So I will also talk to my drivers. Say, listen, if you really feel it necessary, run your car after we're all done, I need to know first. And it's gonna depend on the time. And it's usually the big cars and late models, and they wanna test their whatever they've got.
You charge for camping? Do people stay overnight there?
Usually, somebody will come on a Saturday morning
Okay.
and they'll just leave their camper there and they'll stay. I don't charge for that. I think if I did, I don't know, there's a lot of people who wanna come and stay. Like, let's clean up on my part.
All right, well, I think we have, for that, they were asking for 11:45. Now, are we able to just make a recommendation or approve a different time, or do we have to first? We have to approach the 11:45 and say no, and then say we've offered.
Gonna run by the board.
You can make a recommendation for 11:15,
Okay,
and I would clarify that what 11:15 means.
Mhm.
If it means no races started after 11:15, or if it means no cars on the track.
okay.
Or if there's, no cars on the track at, say, 11:45, or at a certain point.
Permanent approval for 11:15, or is this gonna have to be revisited again?
That would be up to the planning commission and the board. Whether you want it to be a full year or permanently.
The 11 o'clock that we're based off right now, I believe is in their current special use permit, right? Because it's not in the,
Correct, this is current.
it's not in the, it's not in the sports park.
Yeah, because in the sports part, it says they can only race during daylight hours. So, number 12, racing events shall only take place during daylight hours unless otherwise specifically permitted in the terms of the special land use. So, yes, their permit has to have a time on it because they're already receiving special permission.
Some rewriting, that's for sure.
Well, it's all special use, so it's just less otherwise permitted and they need lights.
All right, is there anyone that would like to make a motion? Start with that, make sure it meets the criteria. We'll run it by our. Sure this comes out as we would like. And you have the look.
Look, because I hate to keep this going. But we approved the extension to 11:45 in 2022, 2023.
We didn't in 2022.
That's right.
Township board went against our recommendation.
That's right.
Oh, I see, yeah, yeah.
That's correct.
That's when Blackbird had the track.
That's right.
Last year, we approved it for 11:45.
Yeah.
Now we're taking it back to 11:15.
Which is fine with me. I mean,
If it sounds like we have an agreement from the person that's operating the business, 11:15 would work, and we're moving it back from what it was, I think it's a win for, it seems like we're moving in the right direction, and let's see where that,
Sounds like a treaty.
I think that's Olive Branch, I think, that's a good opportunity, at least be able to try that, so we just need to formulate it, and do you have anyone who is a wordsmith? that-
I'll make a motion to approve SU 24-02 as presented.
We'll take a vote right now.
As presented means 11:45, so just so y'all know what you're voting on.
All right, we have a motion and support. We'll take a roll call vote. Kevin?
Hold on.
We're going, we're
I
doing.
didn't understand.
Okay, we just had a,
Say it, Jesse. It was, 11:15
I just left it as it is.
as is.
Yeah, 11:45 is what's on the table for voting.
okay. We have a motion and a support. All right, we'll take a yes or a yea or nay. Kevin?
Hey,
Casey?
No,
Scott? Yes. Lee?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Dave, I will vote yes. All right, we'll go 11:45, we'll continue with that as it will be, and that is again, we need to stipulate that it's no race starting before, it has to start.
On or before 11:15.
This motion was for as presented. The proposed special land use was to continue curfew from 2023 at 11:45.
and that's off the track, going.
That's the way I would.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Off track,
off
down.
track at 11:45.
That's the way I.
Okay.
There's still cars on the track after 11:40.
No, it's still wise to not start any-
That's the way I would.
Gives me that.
No practice,
The
no
flag,
nothing.
the flag drops.
11:45 is
The checkers.
Yeah, correct. I have no problem making sure of that.
Got one done.
All right. Moving to number 7, we have communications, there's some township board meeting minutes. With a planning and zoning report for February 2024 in there. Unfinished business, we have no unfinished business, and we will go to new business. We'll start with the SPR 24-02 for J&J Farms and the services expansion. Do you have anyone here for that?
It's John Rossbach, I'm owner of J&J Farms. Trying to build the business a little bit more. Put up new building here. You could have what you need to know on it. Been there 20 years this year, so.
One thing I think that was, I read that, the architect's gonna come back with a drained
Yeah,
plan.
well, he's drawn up the fronts of the building right now.
What, what's on, what was left on your desk? Yes, yep, there's a swale on the north end of the building.
Oh, I see that, yes. Okay. You're currently in business there?
Pardon?
Are you currently in business at that location?
Yes.
I drive by there every day, I'm sorry, I just don't,
No, been there
I miss your sign or whatever. Okay,
I'll also note, they did remove the 2 parking spaces that were next to the building, and they'll share all the parking with the building to the north.
That will not be the main building, it's for off the side, so we can store stuff or do what we need to do. I got loaders that would fit in that new building more than my existing building and stuff.
And that's not used by the general public, is what was stated.
Pardon?
That won't be used by the general public. They won't be pulling up to that, like, so that's.
The main stores,
Yeah, so the parking in front of your other business is what would be the spill, you basically be going, okay. And that was one of the stipulations in here is that we are reduce the number of required parking spaces. If it can be demonstrated that the number of spaces provided is adequate for the use of the building, if there's no public access. So it would be something we can consider at that point. And is it a new piece of property that you bought, or is this on?
I've owned it.
Okay, so it's just on the, okay. Concerns? Comments?
work on tractors, farm implements,
Tractors, construction.
construction equipment, yeah,
Garden.
okay,
So,
all right. Good to know.
Never noticed that place with all those tractors out front?
Right? Really? Oh, what?
You never noticed all those tractors?
Evidently.
Stop by fireworks.
I don't mind doing it, at least twice.
Terrifying, man.
Oh, boy, well, such a focused on my driving. Oh, how good.
You're 10 and 2, aren't you?
Yeah.
Sounds pretty straightforward, just an additional building. Everything is size, roof, pitch, all that stuff.
Lighting.
What's the special exception for parking that we have to mention?
There's adequate parking at a basement.
We can just approve this.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve SPR 24-02. Deal Holton Road, J&J Farms Fields service expansion.
All right, we have a motion and a support. Dave, yes. Jesse?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Dave?
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Kevin? All right. All right, next we have a gentleman here for that, for SPR 24-03, 5480 Holton Road, Twin Lake Ace Hardware, the EV charging station. All right, if you'd like to take a minute and just tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do there?
Sure. So my name's Carl Bloss. I don't work for that company. I just happen to be local and I'm an EV driver. And I use the station, so I know a little bit about it. Basically what we're looking at is two what are called DC fast chargers. There are typically two levels of charging that we talk about. One is the level that's more like overnight or, 240 volt, what you would have in your house, what a hotel might have. I live in downtown Muskie and we have a bunch of those. DC fast chargers are really for road trips. And it's again, one of those things, if you're not looking for them, you probably don't see them. A typical one is up at McCormick on White Lake Drive, right behind where the Catskills are. There's some charge point chargers. So it is about the size of a refrigerator for each one of those. And I think we're talking about two here. And so the way it typically works is a driver would come in, they authorize a session with a card or an app, they plug in, and then typically these days it's about a 15 to 20 minute stop. So they're probably going to go into Ace Hardware and do a little bit of shopping. For example, my wife told me tonight, go bring home some buckets because we got a new cleaning lady coming and she wants new buckets. So they'd be in there. Worst case, they walk a couple steps down to the marathon if they want a Slurpee or something. So there's some dwell time, which is actually a bonus for businesses, which is often why businesses want to install these, not so much the revenue from the charging itself. And then when they're done, they hang up the big cable and they drive away. As far as, what these things look like, again, about the size of a refrigerator, I don't know, did you get plans from the company at all?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, I apologize. I have
I don't know if that's the same drawing you.
I think it is.
Like,
Oh, yes.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
but it's kind of tiny. May I approach?
Yeah.
So this is just a blow up of the parking lot. I'm afraid I only have one,
Yeah.
but it's a blow up of what you have.
Okay.
So basically you're looking at 31 by 31 concrete pad. I don't believe it takes over any of the additional parking spaces. There would be some bollards so people don't run into that and, create any kind of hazard. The cables are not energized before anybody comes up there and starts a session, so it's not an electrocution hazard. Obviously, these things are weatherproof, so it's not a hazard of any kind. So I'm not sure what concerns the township has, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions along those lines.
More on the site itself, there's the parking lot tends to flood.
Okay.
And pretty substantially, and I don't know if there's any been any requests for work to be done on that, or if it's something from our purview that we would ask on that, or if it's something that they're required to do, or is it just something as part of that? I don't know, it can get pretty,
Yeah, I drove by there today and I saw the big cone in the middle of the parking lot.
7 inches of standing water in the parking lot. right?
Yeah, so obviously that would have to be addressed. I don't know where that is on the plans. Certainly that's a stipulation that can be made.
that would be probably the only thing that I would have that would be a concern at all, is when you just said it's not an issue with, I'd hate to have someone standing in it.
Sure. But again, it wouldn't be energized, but certainly it's a concern, just like a gas pump has an electric pump in it, and you don't want that flooding either because you could have the same issue.
Do these chargers accommodate Tesla and all the other brands?
The way it works right now in the industry, there's kind of a change happening in terms of the connector.
That's what I thought.
But typically the way you get around that is with adapters. So for example, if you bought a Ford F-150 Lightning or a Mach-E, you'd be getting an adapter from the company. So I have a Tesla and I have the reverse adapter. But the industry is all moving towards the North American Charging Standards is the official name, but it's kind of what Tesla uses.
Right.
And the way that the charging companies handle that, they just swap the cable out. So that's really not a big deal. It wouldn't be disruptive, like it would be a 1 hour swap if somebody needed to do that, a year or two down the road.
Steve, this may seem odd for me to say, but if we have like electrical code, we have an electrical inspector. What if 15 other businesses wanted to put these in Muskegon or in Dalton? We have to know about every one of them? And does it really have to go through us for somebody to put a charging station in their facility?
It's a good question.
This is on the borderline, and since it's something we don't specifically address in the ordinance, how do we best to have the planning commission weigh in on it? Since it's also the first thing we're doing and it has potential to be, a different type of use or
I get it, I
something.
was curious.
So it's something I could
Seems like-
definitely, we could have be an allowed accessory use to businesses.
Theoretically, your personal garage.
They would still need,
Sorry, I didn't-
same application, same fee.
So you can install one of these at your home.
Not at this level. You wouldn't do that. This is a $500,000 installation.
Oh.
What you're talking about at home, I don't know if any of you are campers, but the 50 amp RV plug, that's typically what I have 2 of those in my garage and I plug the charger into it. It's a whole different level. And that's
Okay.
that's a $600-700 installation.
Yeah.
This is pretty big. This needs a pretty big power feed. You're talking about, bringing consumers energy to make sure you got 3-phase power, that sort of thing, which would be all part of so these folks, I used to work for Consumers Energy. So the way this works typically is they would come to us, they would come to whatever federal or local agencies if there's a funding thing. But they would come to Consumers Energy and say, hey, we want to install this. Where's the closest 3-phase power feed? And then we start talking about, bringing in power feeds if that's necessary, which is more of a cost issue than anything else.
So this would be paid for, owned and managed by the property owner, Ace Hardware?
Yeah, there are typically a couple parties involved, but it is a third-party investor typically. It would be Ace Hardware if they chose to do that with the third. And I know there's a third-party investor. So what they do is they want to put in the upfront money and then make the money from the charging revenue, just like a gas station would. I don't know what agreement they have with Ace Hardware, if there's revenue sharing there. My guess is that Ace Hardware would actually benefit most from somebody stopping and buying something, just like gas stations don't make a lot of money from gas, they make money from Slurpees and roller dogs. So, but yeah, that's typically the way it works. There is some potential federal funding involved. There's something called NEVI that was part of the electric vehicle infrastructure. I don't think they're doing that here because that requires a minimum of 4 stations. So I think this is all private money.
Okay, thank you.
Again, what do you need?
You would see more of maybe an administrative approval or,
Absolutely, unless it's something in standing water, then somebody has to go, no.
Yeah, that's clearly not something anybody wants. I don't want to wait in there.
I would think that'd be the electrical inspector.
Yes, I think so.
See that kind of stuff.
that'd be something that you would,
If it had rained.
That'd be something that,
Maybe this is the impetus for Ace Hardware to finally fix that problem. It's been that way, I guess, since they opened.
Well, if they were smart, they would just say, if you're gonna fund this, then we need to get this fixed at the same time.
Right, they're gonna have to tear up some of the macadam anyway, so it'll be a prime opportunity to put it on range.
we could definitely make that a condition of the site plan approval. It was on the original site plan when the building was initially built, that was a drain. the middle of the parking lot, so.
I would say there's a structural failure somewhere. But then again, not anything against the project, but just more just a.
There's probably a need for it. There's a lot of Airbnbs all over these lakes and surrounding lakes. People are coming from Chicago, Detroit, wherever.
Again, the biggest thing I think you're gonna find is increased traffic from EV drivers along M120. Because it is a conduit up to M37. I know that there's a station that just got put in at Mesick, which was kind of perfect because it was kind of halfway between 31 and 131. And I like that road. I have an electric motorcycle, so I'm like, I love this road. I don't want to go on 31 if I don't have to. So I think it will benefit both the business and just, our traffic in general.
And it's not something that's the business needs to operate. This is something that can be 24/7, correct? It's not something that when they use that is something separate from the business itself. But if someone wanted to use it on an evening trip or something like that, or
They
overnight.
still can. It would be open 24/7.
That's what the idea of that is.
Yeah, and it's just, you have an app or you have an RFID card, you just tap it on the screen and
It's on.
you start charging. So you don't need to run inside and, get the authorized $20 or something.
Are you saying that, given this installation, the next one northbound would be Mesick?
I don't think that's the latest one, the closest one. I don't know for sure. It's just that, so initially these were put on the big corridors, 131, like there's Cadillac and, all the big
Rapids.
spots. Exactly, Big Rapids, exactly. There's one there right by the Culvers. 31 has quite a few. Again, the one in McCormick on White Lake Drive. Then you get up towards Ludington and Manistee.
Okay.
But that corridor in the middle has really been lacking. So this is really a good thing for people traveling that way.
So this would receive some sort of advertisement, or at least people would get that have electric vehicles, or you'd say where are the sites, it would list that's an active.
So there's an app that we use that's called PlugShare. And I can give you some cards. You can look it up. You can go to plugshare.com. And it shows you where the chargers are. And then people can actually check in and say, hey, I successfully used this, and put pictures. And that's how we find out about these things. Like for years, the one in Hart, Michigan, downtown was working, and then it stopped working. It's like, oh, bummer. I like Hart Pizza. I like Stella's Coffee House. And then it got fixed recently. So now it's a place that, I'm going to sit in the pizza shop for half an hour and have a pizza while my car charges. But again, I think for business, it's a great thing. But yeah, PlugShare, and then usually these networks, I don't know which network this is going to be on. So think of it like your BP, your Shell, your Exxon. So we have ChargePoint, we have Electrify America, Red E is a local one. So you would look that up on their app. You can actually see live whether somebody's using it or not, whether it's functional, what the cost is, and then you can go there. In some cases, you can even reserve it. So that's typically how you find it.
Okay.
And they're starting to appear on Google Maps as well.
What does it cost to do like a half-hour charge?
So it's usually charged by the unit of energy, kind of like the gallon, by the kilowatt hour. So a typical DC fast charger is going to be anywhere from 30 to 45 cents per kilowatt hour, which if you're familiar with energy rates, your overnight at home for consumers' energy is about 15. So it's about twice the cost of home charging, which is why most people charge at home because it's the cheapest. But in that case, a fill up would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $15. 15 to 20, if you have a new Silverado, or the Hummer EV has a 200 kilowatt hour battery, which is like 2.5 times the Tesla. So, that one's going to be a little bit more. So, but yeah, 15, maybe $30 for a big truck.
Anybody have any other questions or concerns? Anyone want to make a motion?
A motion to approve the plan. I can't read where I lost my number. To approve the plans submitted for SPR 2403 at 5480 Holton Road, Ace Harbor location.
Support? We have a motion and support. Dave, yes? Jesse? Yes. Todd?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes, if they repair the drain.
We are on to the draft ordinance for the home-based business and home occupations. Several things have been changed and lots cut. Some added. Anyone see anything we didn't cover or that is not in there that we? I think we beat that one up pretty good over the last.
We did.
Anyone see anything? I didn't go through it, I went through it a couple times and one time without distraction, and I didn't see anything in there that I don't remember us discussing, either to omit or add in.
What precipitated this? It was the auto repair guy on M120.
You can only use half of the business, half the building for
Business purposes. Yeah.
all the stipulations with a lot of names that they had to do.
Noticed there was already a motorhome, a truck, and 3 or 4 quads in the backyard there.
Bunch. That I did see.
Did?
Highway.
How the heck?
I know. I've been looking. I didn't want to say. It's already there.
Anything anyone like to make a motion?
A motion to accept the rewrite and accept the draft ordinance as it's newly written with all the then edits built on the home-based business and home occupations.
That suffice to what you would like for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get an official draft.
Okay.
With all the changes that need to be made. With,
And that goes to the board, right?
this will go with an official first reading of a draft ordinance. And then after that, we'll hold a public hearing. And then that'll go to the board.
Right. Do we do this one by roll call or do we just do it?
Either way.
Okay, I'll do roll call, make it easy. Dave, yes. Jesse?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yeah.
moves forward. And the final item tonight, do you have a preference whether we plan this as part of one of the meetings or if you would like to do a work session in particular for that? Yeah, I don't know if it depends on what we have for a given month. It could be
It would depend if there's nothing going on that month,
I think it deserves a fair
what
amount,
we do.
yeah, a fair amount of time.
work session.
Yeah,
Sure.
I
Okay,
think so.
everybody good with that? Week before next meeting or?
Before next meeting.
Okay, all right. That usually Tuesdays work for everybody? Okay. You'll send us out a reminder on that one, April 20th.
Yes. Okay. That's
All right, that takes us through everything we have there. We're set on that one. If there's anyone that would like to make a motion for adjournment, make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, one meeting at 7:11. Oh, yeah. I think that's pretty short. Nothing you think?